witches, welcome back on my channel. As Imbolc is on its way, I thought it could be interesting to explore the Celtic goddess Brigid, since she is celebrated at Imbolc. And at first I wasn't sure. I asked you guys on Instagram if you wanted me to make a video on Brigid, and surprisingly a lot of people answered yes. Not surprisingly that people want to hear about her, just surprisingly that people answered. Usually when I create a poll in my stories, nobody answers. So I had to do it, but at first I wasn't sure because I knew it was gonna be a lot, and it was a lot. It was another rabbit hole. So bear with me. Today we're gonna go in depth talking about the goddess Brigid. I talked a little bit about her in my Imbolc video, obviously. So first of all, if you haven't seen that one, you can go check it out right now if you want to learn a bit more about Imbolc. If you have seen it already, then I may repeat myself and say stuff that I said about Brigid. It is what it is. Brigid is Brigid. Let's start! So Brigid was worshipped throughout all of Ireland. She was a really important deity, but she was also worshipped elsewhere around the Celtic world, sometimes with other names. For example, in Scotland during the 6th and the 7th century, there were some invaders from Ireland, and Brigid was kind of a bonding point between both. We're just like, hey, why are you here? But Brigid. This is actually probably where Brigid came to be more in Scotland. Probably these Irish people brought it with her along with their language. She is said to be derived from the goddess Brigantia of the Brigantes, the Brigantes, the Brigants. I'm not quite sure, but they were a British people. They had a goddess named Brigantia. They are both very, very similar, so Brigid is most likely derived from her. She is also thought to be an equivalent to the Roman goddess Minerva, or her Greek equivalent, which is also Athena, just because they share some similarities, which we're gonna get into in a moment. But before, as always, I do like to go into some etymology and to dissect the words and figure out where they came from. And this is the part where I butcher a lot of names and pronunciations. Brigid is most likely the origin of the modern name Bridget. It originally came from the Proto-Celtic Briganti, meaning high one or exalted one, which itself comes from the Proto-Indo-European this. It's not even letters. I'm sorry, I don't know. I mean, it is letters. It's just not letters I can read. And so apparently that root is also the same root as the word bright in English. Some version of her older name too was said to mean fiery arrow. So as I mentioned, there are several versions of the name, either because it is from a different part in the Celtic world, either because of some translation that have been made, or simply the language and spelling changing over time. So of course there is Brigid, Brigid with an H, Bridget with a T, Brid or Breed. In Wales there is Bride or Brand, a Brie or Bridgie on the Isle of Man, and in Scotland, Bride. Okay, so far so many names, so many different places where she was worshipped, but who is she? Who is Brigid? So she was a member of the Tuatha Dé Danann, who, put simply, were a race of supernatural gods, fairies, and or aliens. Concisely, that's really how I can put it. But if you want to know more about it, I could make another video on them specifically, which I probably should have done first, now that I think about it. Yeah, but look, it's Imbolc and it's Brigid time. She had an arranged wedding, and her husband was Bress, who eventually became the king of the Tuatha Dé Danann. He was also half Fomorian, who were a race of giants, rivals to the Tuatha Dé Danann. So she got married to him kind of to make peace. We're gonna see later that it did not work. With Bress, she also had a son named Ruan. Her father was the Dagda. He was kind of the chief of all gods, a little like Zeus in the Greek mythology, the god of gods. He was also often associated with Odin from the Norse mythology. Her mother is not clear. I don't think it's mentioned in any specific tale, or I did not read about it, but there are some speculations. Some say that her mother was Danu, since she had a relationship with the Dagda, either as a lover or as a mother some other times, depending on the tale. Some others think that that Brigid's mother is the Morrigan for similar reasons. She also had a relationship with the Dagda at some point. However, there is no further evidence that the Morrigan would be Brigid's mother, nor that she had any children of her own. And as the Dagda also has several other children with other women, like it could just be anyone. But Brigid is said to have been born at dawn, that it was so bright that it made it look like her parents' house was on fire. Which leads me to, what is she a goddess of? Well, with that little hint I just told you, that can already tell you that she was a sun deity and a fire deity. She was the goddess of spring and ruled over all the summer months. On Imbolc, so around February 1st in England and Ireland, snowdrops are already piercing the snow. It's not a thing here. So the snowdrops popping out of the earth is said to be a result of Brigid walking on earth with her warm and soft feet. I like that imagery. I don't know, it's so significant and so cute and pure. She is also a goddess of motherhood, fertility, life in general, like giving life, just like spring, and a guardian of children. In link to that, she is said to lean over every newborn's crib, kind of just to welcome them into the world. But I think most importantly, she is renowned to be a goddess of poetry and arts, the fire of inspiration, you know. She is also a goddess of healing, protection, blacksmithing, and domestic animals and agriculture in general, especially like cows and sheep and milk. That. Also, she is a goddess of wisdom and knowledge. Some say she is even an augury, so like she sees the future. She was many things. This may be explained by the fact that she was said to also have two sisters, both named Brigid. So Brigid the healer and Brigid the smith. So whenever Brigid is referenced, I think it could be either one of these three, but they're also three and one and the same. So she was a triple goddess. This may also be why she has so many contradictory traits. For example, she's a goddess of fire. Imbolc is a fire festival to celebrate the increasing power of the sun, so a big ball of fire. But she is also a goddess of water. Many of Ireland's wells are dedicated to her, as well as a lot of rivers. Some suggest, however, that since her sisters have the same name as her, and that Brigid means the high one, it was probably more of a title than a name, and so Brigid could have referred to several other deities, but that's kind of just a hypothesis, although it does make sense. Brigid is often portrayed with bright, fiery hair, the typical Irish hair, should I say, and is often depicted with fire around her or sun rays coming out of her head. She's often wearing her Brigid's cross somewhere on the picture, which we're gonna come to later as well, and also often with jars of milk, a cauldron, a well around, and several different animals. Now here are some animals that she's often linked to. The snake, just because it's a symbol of fertility and spring. She is also associated with the swan, although maybe a little less in Ireland and more in Britain. And something that is because February 1st marks the northern departure of the birds. They're on their way back to Europe. She's also said to have saved the king of boars, Triath, who was being hunted. He decided to stay and hang out with for the rest of his life. She also has two oxen, Fea and Femen, who lended their names to Magfea and Magfemin in County Kildare. She's also associated with the king of sheep, Curb, and with a white-skinned, red-eared fairy cow. Now we'll get to this one later. If you're someone who works with deities in your craft, and if you want to work with Brigid, here are some offerings that you can give her. So milk, water, candles for the fire, blackberries, bread, ivy, coins, herbal tea, some craft, I don't know, any drawing that you did, heather, spears, and arrows. So kind of anything in relation to what she's a goddess of. Now, if you've ever researched Brigid, you for sure have come across St-Brigid, and you were probably like, is this the same person or the same entity? Of course, a lot of pagan deities did not survive Christianity for obvious reasons. Some of them completely disappeared, some of them remained as ancient stories. Brigid is kind of an exception, because even well into the Christian era, Irish writers credited Brigid for their inspiration. Or perhaps were they referencing Saint Brigid? Wait, what? A pagan goddess who has the same name as a Catholic saint? So let's talk about Saint Brigid of Kildare. She was born in Fort, lived from the year 450 to the year 523. She was the abbess of the first convent in Ireland. There's like Saint Patrick, and then she's over there. And she has a sanctuary in Kildare County. Apart from her name, she shares many attributes with the pagan goddess. She's associated with sacred fires, sacred wells. She was a healer, a midwife, and apparently she even brought back the dead to life. She also had visions, and Brigid was an augury. They both shared the same feast day, February 1st. This one's a little weird. They both have a strong connection to beer. I mean, I said it's a little weird. It's Ireland. What am I saying? They can change water into beer. There's even a children's song about Saint Brigid, but in which the chorus clearly points to the pagan goddess. We sing a song to Brigid. Brigid brings the spring, awakens all the fields and the flowers, and calls the birds to sing. She brings the spring, that's literally just Brigid. And it's even hard to distinguish them sometimes within the same article. The line, they're just so intertwined. There is no line. The line is very faint, so it's sometimes confusing reading about Brigid. But yeah, during my research, I found so many places where they would kind of interchange using Brigid and Saint Brigid as if they were one and only. I also stumbled upon a lot of Assassin's Creed articles. There are also some stories about the saint that don't sound very saint-like. On several occasions, she was said to have played tricks on people. It was often for a good cause, but still. For example, she once cursed an apple tree because the man didn't want to share with the people in need. He didn't want to share his apples, so she was like, well, guess you're not gonna have them either, bitch. Cursing doesn't sound very saint-like. Now, this one thing sounds very witchy to me. So at her sanctuary, there was a sacred flame that was always burning for St. Brigid, tended by 19 nuns. I'm just gonna read that sentence because I don't know how to say it otherwise. The sacred flame at Kildare was said by Geraldus Cambrensis, an historian from the 12th century, and other chroniclers to have been surrounded by a hedge which no man could cross. Men who attempted to cross the edge were said to have been cursed to go insane, die, or be crippled. Now, if that doesn't sound like a coven of witch, I don't know what is. The thing is, the tradition of female priestesses tending to eternal flames is apparently a feature of Indo-European pre-Christian spirituality. So that story ends up being in the Saint Brigid story, but kind of referencing to pre-Christian spirituality, so paganism. Now, this one is quite controversial, but Saint Brigid was also said to have performed the first abortion in Ireland. The story just goes that there was this young woman who got pregnant, who shouldn't have gotten pregnant. She was just like, you gotta help me. And so as a guardian of children and motherhood, she decided to help, and she just made it disappear. Just like that. I mean, yay, miracle, but really? Now you might be saying, wait, guardian of children, motherhood, isn't that Brigid the goddess? Well, that's what I'm saying. Saint Brigid's birth story is also slightly weird. So she would have been born in a pagan family with a druid father, and she would only accept milk from a cow that I mentioned earlier that had white skin and red ears. And these characteristics are usually characteristics of fairies in folktales. So she was only fed by a fairy cow. Even weirder, now listen to that. She was apparently the midwife of the Virgin Mary. Now, how is that possible? Unless time isn't real, or unless she was a time traveler, or both. But there is also apparently no tangible proof that she existed, really, from what I read anyway, but maybe I'm wrong. But it's also just possible that in order to assimilate people, they sort of just transferred Brigid the goddess's associations and characteristics onto some made-up saint. So whoever worshipped Brigid now worshipped St-Brigid. They're the same, right? I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that Christianity did that. Ooh, fun fact though, I wasn't sure at first I was gonna put that in the video, but I thought it was so interesting. So where St-Brigid was born, there is a sacred well there. And then she had her sacred sanctuary in Kildare, right? Both of these places are perfectly aligned, and in between there is the Hill of Slane and the Hill of Tara, two very important hills as well in Ireland, and it's just like a straight line. I'm gonna put in the description the interview I listened to that was talking about that. I thought it was very, very interesting. And they also talk about a constellation Cygnus Swan. We remember the swans are associated with Brigid. The constellation, it's like an X. It shows a cross. One of the biggest symbols of Brigid and Saint Brigid is Brigid's cross. I just think, I don't know, it's just, I like to find little details like that. So Brigid's cross, it is of course now associated with Saint Brigid. It's often seen with 4 legs like this, but also very often seen with 3 legs like this. And that sort of weaving was widely spread way before Christianity arrived, so it is possible that it was already a symbol of Brigid, not Saint Brigid, just Brigid the goddess. Plus, the 3-legged version resembles very much a Triskele or a Triquetra. I'm sorry for butchering the words. Really made me wonder which version came first, or were they simultaneous? Like, I'm thinking maybe the 3-legged version was like the original version, and then it became 4-legged to match St. Brigid's story because it's a cross. I don't know. That's just, I read that nowhere. I have no... That's just a thought. But overall, what it is used as a symbol of protection. It is very often placed on cribs to protect babies. It was also placed in like stables to protect cows and, you know, encourage them to make more milk. And it is also said to protect the house from fires. Over time, it became the emblem of many, many things and is still the emblem for the Irish Nursing Board, which, I don't know, I think is very cool. Now, I wanted to include in this video some tales, some of, you know, the epic poems. So I had quite a hard time finding different stories about her. There's always the same ones that kept coming back, so I kept those. She's mentioned in the first battle of Mag Tuired. Without getting into details, because she's really there kind of once, the king of the Tuatha Dé Danann at that moment was Nuada, and he lost his hand in the battle. And it was Brigid who told everyone that basically he couldn't be king anymore, because who can be king without one of their hands? So they all agreed to select a new king, and it was Bress, her husband, who was selected. Now, in the second battle of Mag Tuired, the Tuatha Dé Danann, who had conquered Ireland, found themselves being oppressed by the Fomorians, the giant race. The battle was kind of to fight them off. And the thing is, the Fomorians were able to oppress them and attack them because Bress, who was half Fomorian, was being a real dick to the Tuatha Dé Danann. He was not a good king. But during this battle, at some point, it was going really bad for the Fomorians, and so they sent a spy to let them know what was going on the other side. So they sent Ruan, Brigid's son. Oh no. And also kind of part Fomorian. So he went on to spy on the Tuatha Dé Danann and found out that they were actually bringing back from the dead their dead. So he came back, told the Fomorians that info, and they were like, okay, you're gonna go back and you're gonna kill whoever is doing that. So it was like a group of smiths. So he went back and he asked for a spear, which he used to fucking stab him in the back. That only wounded the smith, so the smith took that spear out of his own back and threw it at Rowan, eventually killing him. Now, in some places it's said that he died in front of his father and the Fomorians. Some other instances it says that he died right in front of Brigid's eyes. You know, maybe he just died in front of fucking everyone. He died. Okay. And when Brigid saw that, they say that at first she shrieked and then she wept. That was the first time that sorrow and crying was ever heard in Ireland. And this led to a long tradition of something called keening, which is a mix of crying and singing for the dead. So for a long time, maybe even still today, I'm not sure, but people would hire women to weep at the funerals, and that would be the origin story. Now the other one is about St-Brigid. It still has that magic element that a goddess could have. It's called St-Brigid's mantle or St-Brigid's cloak. So when St-Brigid found the perfect spot she wanted her sanctuary to be built on, she went on to ask the King of Leinster if she could acquire that land, and the king was like, no, it's my land. So she was very disappointed, and she prayed with her sisters and maidens, and then she came back. She had an idea. She was like, okay, well, will you let me acquire every bit of land that my cloak can cover? And the king was like, what is she on about? Is she stupid? Have you seen that cloak? It's so tiny teeny. And so he was like, yeah, go ahead. She had came with 4 maidens who each took a corner of her cloak and went separate ways. So north, south, east, west. And the cloak grew and grew and grew until it covered several acres. And she was like, well, yeah, that's good. That sounds about right. That's gonna be perfect. Let me tell you, the king was baffled. So she built that monastery and sanctuary there. It is also sometimes said that Brigid's cloak covers all of Ireland, and I think it's kind of nice. So we're already coming to an end talking. I mean, I say already, this has went on for ages. I think it's a little unfortunate that she is so closely related to Saint Brigid now. She sort of gets lost within that other Christian figure. Some stories of the goddess probably got even more lost because now they were just adapted to fit the saint. However, it is also very fortunate because it allows her to still live and still have an influence in some way. She even somehow has some influence in Haiti. So in the voodoo beliefs, there is that figure of Maman Brigitte, who is kind of a bridge between life and death. She's protector of the dead, protector of the graves, which is quite different from Brigid because she's more of a life deity. However, Maman Brigitte is also a powerful healer, and over time she sort of has been smooshed with and represented by St. Brigid of Kildare. It was probably for the practitioners to still be able to practice their faith while not being persecuted by the Christians. Brigid, they were like, all right, we're gonna take her and we're gonna pretend. So over time, Maman Brigitte kind of acquired some of Brigid's traits. So through her saint counterpart, the goddess Brigid was, you know, able to travel further away from Ireland and the Celtic world, and was able to protect, in a way, even more people through her guise. No wonder she's so loved, and still today by neo-pagans and witches. So here we are. That was all I found on Brigid, the goddess of healing and poetry and of all these wonderful things. And you know, I really enjoyed doing that research to get to know her even more, you know, and even while I was doing my research, I felt so inspired. It was weird. I was just like, Brigid, is this you? So anyway, I hope you guys found this video interesting. If you did, please give it a thumbs up so I know. Also, let me know which other deity you would like me to cover next, or would you like me to do a video on the Tuatha De Danann or on just some other tales? If you would want me to look at another pantheon, some of the Greek gods, some of the Haitian god, Indian god, I'm open to everything. I'm really interested in diving into loads of things. If you like this video, you can also share it with your friends and subscribe to my channel, obviously. It always helps me a lot and makes me very happy, but also helps me. Please subscribe. Thank you. It takes 2 seconds. You can follow me on all of my social media to see what I do. I'll see you soon. Take care. Have an amazing Imbolc. Take care of yourselves and be nice. That is the message I want to put out there. Be nice. Everyone's mean. Be nice. I love you. Bye-bye.